Neville Goddard taught it over half a century ago that imagination creates reality. But most people still don't realize you're not waiting for life to change. What you see inside is what you'll see outside. This audiobook will show you how to align with that inner law and reshape your reality from the inside out. Make reality easy. Introduction. There is a quiet law that governs all things, not from above, but from within. It does not shout. It does not strive. It does not wait to be worshipped. It only waits to be seen, and once seen, it obeys. This is not the law of chance, or effort, or deserving. It is not the law of hustle or hierarchy. This is the law of assumption. The law that says, according to your faith, be it unto you. Matthew 9:29. It was never a question of how to make things happen. It was only ever a question of what you're dwelling in. Because what you see within, you shall see without. This law is older than language. It lived in the teachings of Christ, in the mysticism of ancient Egypt, in the scrolls of early Christians, and in the metaphysical revolutions of the early 20th century. Neville Goddard called it living in the end. Joseph Murphy called it the subconscious creative mechanism. Others call it imagination. Call it what you will. It does not need your belief to operate. It only needs your attention. You are already using it every moment of every day. The problem is not that the law is broken. The problem is that it has worked too well, fulfilling the very fears, doubts, and stories you never meant to keep alive. This is not a guide for getting more. This is an awakening to what you've been giving life to all along. Once understood, this law returns the power of reality to its rightful place, not in the hands of fate, or the movement of the stars, or the judgment of others, but within your own awareness, because you are not at the mercy of what is. You are the one imagining it. The question is not whether you can change your life. The question is whether you can change your inner state and dwell there long enough for it to become real. This is not theory. It is spiritual law. And it is proven not by argument, but by experience. And so this audiobook will not ask you to believe blindly. It will ask you to see clearly, to turn your gaze inward, to live in the end, not just think about it, to revise the past, not be ruled by it, to feel truth before it becomes visible. Because reality is not mechanical, it is imaginal. And the moment you return to the creative center within you, you will remember the world has never been separate from you. It was always responding. It was always reflecting. It was always waiting on you to see. Chapter 1. You are already creating. You don't need to learn how to create reality. You're doing it already. Right now, without effort, without fanfare, your inner world is shaping your outer one. The only difference between those who suffer through life and those who awaken is this: one creates unconsciously, the other creates deliberately. Most people believe life happens to them, that circumstances arrive by luck, or karma, or divine whim. But the truth is far simpler and far more profound. The outer world is the mirror of the inner. You are already the cause. You are already the creator. You are already living in the law. The only question now is, what are you creating? The invisible blueprint. Every experience you call life springs from a seed sown in the silence, a thought repeated, a mood entertained, an assumption accepted as true. You may have said, I always struggle. And so you did. I never find love, and so love hid from you. People like me don't get ahead, and so your path remained closed. Not because you were cursed, not because life is cruel, but because you unknowingly planted a root, and reality, like fertile soil, obeyed. As within, so without. As above, so below. Your thoughts are not idle. Your moods are not passing. They are instructions. Every scene you experience, every conversation, coincidence, or delay was first sketched in the unseen realm of assumption. You live inside a house built by your beliefs, even if you've forgotten that you laid the first brick. The great misunderstanding. Most people say, I'll believe it when I see it, but the law says, you'll see it when you believe it. You are not a spectator of reality. You are the projector. The images of your imagination, vivid or faint, are being cast onto the screen of life. Not someday. Now. Always. And yet, you wonder why the scenery never changes. You've been rearranging furniture in the outer world, while the blueprint inside remains the same. You've been treating symptoms instead of touching the source. And the source is always your state of consciousness. Joseph Murphy once said, your subconscious mind takes your beliefs as commands. It doesn't question you. It does not argue. It only says, yes. Not a future skill, a present awakening. Let us be clear. This law is not something you must earn. You were born with it. The moment you imagined yourself, you created. The moment you assumed defeat, you created. The moment you clung to fear, or hope, or joy, you created. You have been using the law since childhood. When you played pretend, you entered a world more real than the one around you. When you feared the dark, you gave it power. When you wished on stars, something in you knew. There is more than what is seen. You are not learning a new law. You are becoming conscious of the one you've always obeyed. But I didn't mean to create this. Perhaps you look at your life and say, I never wanted this. I didn't ask for this. And in terms of conscious will, you may be right. But understand this. The law does not respond to words alone. It responds to what you dwell in, the emotional home you return to each day. You may have spoken abundance, but feared lack. You may have prayed for love, but assumed rejection. You may have acted strong, but silently imagined failure. And the law, impartial, exact, unfailing, honored the deepest signal. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. James 1:8. You cannot serve two states. You must choose fear or faith, resentment or revision, delay or dwelling in the end. Your inner life is the only soil that matters, and whatever seed is watered will grow. You are not a victim. You are the dreamer. Neville said, man is all imagination. God is man and exists in us and we in him. You are not separate from the divine. You are not a pawn in the hands of fate. You are the operant power, the dreamer in the dream. And like all dreamers, you forget. You walk through the dream and believe it is solid, final, unchangeable. But the moment you awaken, even a little, the dream begins to bend, not by force, not by striving, but by the quiet realignment of your assumption. You begin to imagine differently, and the world responds differently. Your life is speaking back. Do not think of your reality as punishment. Think of it as a message. It shows you what you've accepted. It reveals the contents of your internal state. Not to shame you, but to invite you into awareness. The pain, the lack, the delay, they are all mirrors, and the mirror can only reflect what you bring to it. But here is the good news. The moment you change your assumption, the reflection must follow. Not always immediately, but always faithfully. The outer must match the inner. This is the law. So what now? Begin by watching your inner speech, not just what you say with your mouth, but what you whisper to yourself when no one is around. Begin by noticing your emotional habits, the moods you wear like clothes. You don't need to fix it all at once. You only need to realize you are not trapped. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are already creating. Every moment, every thought, every feeling. And the moment you accept this, not just as a theory, but as a living law, you will begin to shift gently, powerfully, permanently, because you are not waiting for change. You are the change. And what you see within, you shall see without. Chapter 2. The law that cannot fail. There is a law that never sleeps. It does not bend for luck. It does not respond to effort. It does not care whether you believe in it or not. It simply fulfills what you assume to be true. This is the law that governs all manifestation, all transformation, all becoming. Not the law of effort, but the law of assumption. According to your faith, be it unto you. Matthew 9:29. This is not poetry. This is precision. The world you live in, the conditions you see, the people you encounter, the patterns that repeat, all arise from this single truth. What you accept as real within must appear without. You may call it imagination. You may call it a subconscious belief. You may call it inner knowing, prayer, or alignment. But the name doesn't change the law. The law works because it is law, and it cannot fail. Not a technique, but a principle. This is not a trick to get something from the universe. It is the foundation of how life already works. You are not learning to manipulate reality. You are learning to recognize your role in it. The law of assumption says, you do not receive what you want. You receive what you are in consciousness. If you dwell in lack, you meet more lack. If you dwell in fulfilled desire, the world begins to conform to that state. The world does not lead. It follows. Joseph Murphy once said, "Whatever you impress on the subconscious mind is expressed on the screen of space." This law is not partial. It plays no favorites. It answers whatever is impressed upon it, noble or not, joyful or not, conscious or not. This is why the law feels cruel to the unaware, but like a miracle to the awakened. Faith is the fuel. We are not speaking of blind belief, but of faith as inner conviction, a deep knowing that bypasses reason. Faith is not the result of seeing. Faith is what makes seeing possible. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. What does this mean? It means that before the form appears, there is a feeling, a state, a knowing that says, "It is done. It is mine. It is so." And from that unseen root, the visible fruit begins to emerge. You cannot fake it with words. You cannot bypass it with positive thinking alone. You must assume the truth of your desire. Live in its reality. Feel from its fulfillment. And then, without strain, life bends. The law is impartial, but you are not. This law is not moral. It does not judge. It simply reflects. If you impress upon it fear, it will grow scenarios to match. If you impress upon it love, it will mirror connection and flow. If you believe deeply in struggle, it will oblige. If you assume peace, it will not delay. The law always answers the signal you hold, not the words you speak. That's why affirmations often fail. You can repeat, "I am worthy," 1,000 times. But if your inner state says, "I'm not enough," the law responds to that. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap. Galatians 6:7. Your consciousness is the field. Your assumptions are the seeds. The harvest is inevitable. The secret Neville revealed. Neville didn't invent the law. He uncovered it. And he taught it not as an external formula, but as an identity shift. Man is all imagination. Therefore, man must be where he is in imagination, for his imagination is himself. When you live in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are not pretending. You are occupying a new identity. You are saying, "I am no longer hoping. I am." This is not delusion. This is spiritual causation. You are not visualizing something to come. You are assuming it has already come and allowing life to catch up to your inner truth. This is why the law cannot fail. It must reflect the self you're being. But what if I doubt? Doubt comes from identifying with the visible world, from measuring reality by what the senses report. But senses are slow. They report the past, not the present moment of creation. Doubt says, "I don't see it yet." But faith replies, "It's already done." You do not destroy doubt by fighting it. You dissolve it by dwelling in the end. By feeling, thinking, and acting from the version of yourself that already knows. This is who I am now. This is where I live. This is what I see within. The longer you hold that assumption, the weaker doubt becomes, because your reality will begin to reflect your new state, and doubt cannot survive evidence. The bridge is already building. Once the assumption is stable, when you no longer revisit the old self, the old story, the law moves. not through magic, through movement, through coincidences, sudden opportunities, unexpected help. Neville called this the bridge of incident, the unfolding of life according to the state you now occupy. You don't have to figure out how. That's not your role. Your role is to remain faithful to the new state, even before a single thing looks different. Why? Because the law is not watching the world. It's watching you. You are the gatekeeper. You can no longer say, "I didn't know." The law has been revealed to you. And now, the question is not whether it works, but whether you will work with it. This does not require force. It requires surrender. A gentle, quiet decision to stop waiting for change and start assuming that it already is. You are the one who decides what's real in here. And what's real in here becomes what's seen out there. The kingdom of God is within you. Luke 17:21. This is not metaphor. It is spiritual law. You are the gatekeeper of reality, the shepherd of thought, the dreamer, and the dream. The law is already active. The question is, what are you ready to assume as true? Chapter 3. Living in the End. How to dwell in fulfillment. There is one act that separates the wanderer from the awakened. One shift that dissolves delay and draws the invisible into form. It is not striving. It is not hoping. It is not asking. It is dwelling in the end. To live in the end means to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Now, not in imagination alone, but in identity, in consciousness, in being. Neville Goddard said it plainly. The secret of imagining is to think from the end. Not of it, not about it, but from it. This is not fantasy. This is the law. What does it mean to live in the end? Living in the end means inhabiting the version of yourself for whom the desire is already real. It means allowing your thoughts, your feelings, your posture, and your mood to arise from the state of fulfillment, not from the waiting room of someday. If you desire love, you move through the world as the beloved. If you desire health, you inhabit the energy of the healed. If you desire abundance, you let go of the question, how will it happen? And live from it already has. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Mark 11:24. Not will receive. Have received. This is the language of the law. The end is a state, not a goal. Many confuse living in the end with setting goals or visualizing outcomes, but the end is not a checklist. It is a state of being. States are not achieved. They are assumed. You can step into a state the same way you step into a room, by accepting that it is where you now are. The outer world does not need to confirm it first. That is not the law's requirement. The law does not wait for evidence. It produces it. The inner shift is the real movement. People often ask, how long will it take to see results? The answer depends only on this. How deeply are you dwelling in the new state? When you enter the state fully, when you no longer seek it, but live from it, life begins to move. Subtly, powerfully, it organizes itself around the vibration you are now carrying. Neville called it wearing the mood of fulfillment. Joseph Murphy called it conditioning the subconscious mind with the end result. The names differ. The law does not. You are planting the seed. Your job is not to dig it up daily to check its progress. Your job is to live as though it is already done. And when your reactions, your self-talk, your emotional baseline begin to align with that version of you, the bridge to it appears. Stop waiting. Start dwelling. Waiting is the religion of the unawakened. Hoping is the habit of those who've forgotten their power. You do not wait for the outside to shift. You shift first, and the outer reflects. This is why your waiting has become suffering. You've outsourced your identity to circumstances. But when you live in the end, you no longer ask, when will it come? You already know the answer. It's here. And that knowing, that quiet, invisible shift, becomes the womb of every new reality. Living in the end is not pretending. You are not faking it. You are not lying to yourself. You are choosing to align with the higher truth. That assumption precedes form. Faith is not delusion. Faith is clarity that precedes confirmation. Call those things which be not as though they were. Romans 4:17. You are not making things up. You are waking things up. Every fulfilled desire already exists as a potential. The moment you enter it internally, you begin collapsing time. You begin calling it forth. And when you stay there, when you dwell, you water it with certainty. Emotional evidence, not physical evidence. The most powerful sign that you're dwelling in the end is not what you see. It's what you feel. There is a peace, a joy, a sacred stillness that enters you, not because the world has changed, but because you have. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer wondering. You are simply living as one who already knows. You smile before the door opens. You relax before the phone call comes. You give thanks before the blessing arrives. Because you already are. That's the mark of one who understands the law. Dwelling requires consistency, not perfection. Don't expect to feel the state perfectly every moment. You are human, and the old state may tug at you from time to time. But each time you return to the new state, each time you rehearse the end, feel it, live from it, you strengthen the signal. Over time, it becomes natural. And what is natural must be expressed. What you accept as true of yourself and your world is more powerful than any prayer. Neville Goddard. You do not have to convince the law to work. You only have to stop contradicting it. Practice the end in silence. Tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself, if my desire were already fulfilled, how would I feel? Then feel it. And fall asleep in that state. Let your final thoughts dwell in the end. not in the absence, not in the question, not in the doubt, but in the knowing. And if you wake tomorrow and feel the old story returning, gently remind yourself, no, I do not visit the end. I live there. The law is not impressed by urgency. It is activated by assumption. The world is malleable to the one who dwells. Once you commit to living in the end, the world will begin to echo your state. People will speak words that affirm your new identity. Doors you could never have opened through force will swing wide. But even if nothing moves at first, stay, because the world cannot resist the one who dwells in fulfillment. The law is not optional. It cannot be broken. And the end you live in must become the life you walk in. What you see within, you shall see without. But first, you must live there. Chapter 4. Feeling is the secret and the signal. You may hear these words 100 times. Assume the wish fulfilled. Live in the end. Dwell in the new state. But until you understand this, nothing moves. Feeling is the secret. You can visualize for hours. You can script affirmations across 100 pages. You can whisper declarations into the mirror. But if the feeling is absent, the signal is weak. Because it is not the image alone that creates. It is the emotional charge behind it, the conviction, the atmosphere, the internal truth you embody. The law responds to atmosphere, not words. You don't need to convince the universe. You need to impress your subconscious. And the subconscious doesn't speak English. It speaks in emotion. It listens to how you feel about what you think. That's why a single assumption, deeply felt, can produce more change than 1,000 hours of wishful thinking. The feeling of the wish fulfilled, if assumed and sustained, must objectify the state imagined. This is not a metaphor. It is mechanism. The feeling is the seed. Your state of consciousness is the soil. And the world is simply the garden where your inner convictions grow. Emotion is energy in motion. Feeling is not weakness. It is power. It is the hidden current running beneath every thought, every expectation, every reaction. You may think you're being logical, reasonable, grounded, but beneath that, your emotional state is always broadcasting. And the law listens to your broadcast. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. Not in his intellect, not in his vocabulary, but in his heart, the emotional center of his being. That's where reality listens. What does it mean to feel it real? To feel it real is not to pretend. It is to enter into the inner experience of the desired state, to rehearse the reality of it emotionally as though it were present now. It means asking not, how can I make this happen? But, if it were already true, how would I feel? You sit in that feeling. You breathe in that peace. You let your nervous system adjust to a new truth. You are not commanding anything to happen. You are preparing yourself to receive what has already been accepted. Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Mark 11:24. Feel it now, not later. Now is when the imprint occurs. Why most people don't get results. Most people visualize the desire, but feel the absence. They speak abundance, but feel fear. They repeat, "I am loved," but carry the ache of rejection. And the law, precise and unwavering, reflects not the image, not the words, but the dominant emotional frequency. You cannot water two gardens. The one you feed, with attention and feeling, is the one that grows. Your subconscious mind takes the feeling as the substance of reality. It does not know what's real or imagined. It only knows what you feel as real. How to change your feeling. You may ask, but how do I feel something I don't believe yet? The answer is not to fake it. It is to step gently into the atmosphere of it. Start by softening the question. Don't try to force joy. Don't pretend to be thrilled. Ask instead, what would peace feel like in my body right now? If this prayer were already answered, how would I breathe? What posture would I have if I were already loved, already chosen, already safe? Don't search for fireworks. Look for the tone, the quiet shift in your inner environment. That subtle warmth is the beginning of transformation. It is the signal being sent. Let feeling lead behavior. When you begin to feel from the end, your behavior will shift. You won't chase. You'll align. You won't beg. You'll receive. You won't prove. You'll allow. Because the one who feels fulfilled doesn't act from desperation. They act from peace. This is how bridges are built, not by forcing the outcome, but by allowing the feeling to shape your path. Your body is a barometer. Your mind can lie, but your body tells the truth. Tension, tightness, restlessness. These are signs you are imagining from lack. Softness, calm, expansion. These are signs you are in alignment with the end. Use your body as a barometer. It will always tell you whether your inner world is living in fear or fulfillment. Return to the feeling. Let it saturate your imagination. Let it anchor your attention. And then surrender. Let the law do what it always does. Reflect your inner truth. Feel before you see. This is the inversion most never accept, but it is the secret of creation. You must feel it before you see it. This is the only way the world can obey. You do not react to reality. You inform it. When the inner world becomes more real to you than the outer must conform. Neville said, "Dare to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and continue therein." It is not a one-time performance. It is a state you choose again and again until it becomes your default. You are the signal. Understand this clearly. You are the signal. The law does not scan for what you want. It responds to what you are, not what you say you are, but what you feel yourself to be. In the silence, in the stillness, in the unseen. And when that feeling becomes your dwelling place, your home, the law responds, the world shifts, the door opens, the answer arrives, not because you forced it, but because you finally remembered what has always been true. Feeling is the secret, and what you see within, you shall see without. Chapter 5. Revision. Turning the wheel backward. Most believe the past is final, fixed, untouchable. But what if the past was never set in stone, only sustained by memory? What if you could reach back, not with your hands, but with your imagination, and rewrite what was? Neville called it revision. Not denial, not fantasy, but an act of divine authorship. The past and the present form the whole structure of man. They are carrying all of its contents with it. Any alteration of content will result in an alteration in the present and future. The law does not stop working once an event has passed. It continues to build your world based on what you believe happened, even if that belief brings pain. But here lies the secret. The law accepts your revised memory as readily as the original one. Your mind is the pen. Your feeling is the ink. And reality is still being written. The past isn't dead. It's repeating. You may think what happened yesterday is over. But if the emotion still lives, if the scene still echoes inside you, then the past is still operating. It's not history. It's momentum. A single argument, a moment of shame, a painful rejection. You may have survived it. But if you continue to relive it emotionally, you're unconsciously instructing life to mirror it again. And it will, until you revise. Revision is the reset button. To revise is to mentally replay a moment, not as it happened, but as it ought to have happened. You take the same stage, the same actors, but you change the script. The insult becomes praise. The silence becomes kindness. The closed door opens, not to deceive yourself, but to deliver yourself. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. And this renewal is not just about the future. It includes the past. Because as long as the past lives in you, it creates the emotional mold of what's allowed next. How to practice revision. Choose a moment that stings, not decades of pain, just one scene, one conversation, one letdown. Then close your eyes and imagine it again. But this time, you change it. You hear the words you wish were spoken. You see yourself calm, not reactive. You witness a new ending. Don't force it. Don't overthink it. Feel it. Live in it. Let it play out differently until it feels natural. Then, let it go. You have just altered the structure of your inner world, and the outer world must respond accordingly. It's not just about healing. It's about authority. Revision is not only about feeling better. It is about reclaiming authorship. Most people are ruled by memory. They carry forward the emotional debris of every wound and wonder why the same patterns return. But to revise is to say, I no longer carry this pain into my identity. It is not escapism. It is the most honest form of spiritual authority. Because you are not the victim of what was, you are the creator of what is and what will be. And the moment you revise the root, you change the fruit. But isn't that lying? No. The lie is believing you are forever bound by what has been. The lie is imagining yourself powerless. The lie is replaying scenes that shame you and calling it truth. Revision does not falsify the facts. It transcends them. Let the weak say, I am strong. Joel 3:10. This is not denial. It is declaration. And what you declare, repeatedly, emotionally, faithfully, becomes your lived experience. The law obeys the revised image. Understand this. Your subconscious does not distinguish between real and imagined, only between emotional and neutral. If the revised scene is more emotionally charged than the original, it becomes dominant, and the law, like a perfect servant, obeys it. People shift. Circumstances shift. What once seemed final begins to unravel and reassemble around your new inner script. Sometimes the change is external. Sometimes the change is internal. The pain dissolves. The trigger disappears. The story no longer defines you. Either way, you are free. And freedom is the first sign of transformation. Daily revision. Neville taught, revise your day before sleep. Whatever went wrong, revise it. If you were spoken to harshly, replay it with gentleness. If you hesitated in fear, rewrite it with confidence. If you heard bad news, revise it into good. Not because you're delusional, but because you understand how the subconscious molds tomorrow, using yesterday's impressions. You are teaching your inner world how life feels. And your inner world does not sleep, so show it a better scene, and let that version become the new root. Revision is redemption. To revise is to reclaim what felt wasted, to reassign meaning to events that once disempowered you. It is to say, I am not bound by what happened. I am only bound by what I keep imagining. Jesus spoke of forgiveness not as moral superiority, but as liberation from loops. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be white as snow. Isaiah 1:18. Revision is forgiveness in motion. It sets you free by changing the inner structure of what you carry forward. Use it boldly. If the law is truly yours, why not test it? Revise conversations. Revise missed opportunities. Revise childhood wounds, old patterns, financial regrets, and each time, feel the new ending as real. Dwell in the peace it brings. Fall asleep in that new state, because your past is not your prison. It is your palette. And imagination is the brush that paints again. What you revise within, you shall redeem without. The wheel of time may turn forward, But with imagination, you can turn it backward. And when you do, the future changes with it. Chapter 6. The Bridge of Incident, when the path unfolds itself. Once the assumption is made, the bridge appears, not always in thunder, not always in light, but it appears. Life begins to move. Quietly, intelligently, with a wisdom that no mind could predict. This is the bridge of incident, the chain of seemingly unrelated events that lead you to the fulfillment of your assumption. You do not need to control it. You could not, even if you tried. It is not your job to orchestrate the how. It is your job to dwell in the end. The law will handle the rest. Cause is not in the world. It is in you. When you assume a new state, when you live in the end, when you revise, when you feel it real, a seed is planted in your consciousness. And from that seed, reality begins to reorganize itself. People shift. Ideas emerge. Doors open. Often so subtly, you might miss it. But everything is responding to the new vibration you carry. Neville wrote, "The moment you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the fourth dimensional world responds by projecting an event in the three-dimensional world to mirror that state." This projection is the bridge. It is not the desire itself. It is the path to it, and sometimes it looks nothing like you expected. You cannot predict the bridge. Your mind will try to guess. It will ask, how will it come? From whom? Through what channel? But understand this, the law is not bound to logic. Your assumption sets the destination. The bridge determines the route. And the route is not yours to design. It may come through a stranger, through a detour, through an ending you didn't see coming. What feels like a closed door may be the first plank in the bridge. This is why Neville warned, do not concern yourself with the means. Simply assume the end and let life unfold. The means are already being arranged. The path may surprise you. You assume wealth and suddenly lose your job. You assume love and an old relationship falls apart. You assume freedom and everything familiar begins to shake. This is not failure. This is movement. The law is not punishing you. It is removing what no longer aligns with your new state. And it does so without asking for permission. The old must fall away, not to hurt you, but to make space for the new to arrive. You asked for the new ending. The bridge is how you get there. Walk the bridge without doubt. Once the bridge begins, your only task is to walk it without contradiction. Do not revisit the old state. Do not ask, is it working? Do not stare at appearances and lose faith. For we walk by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. The bridge does not require your effort, only your fidelity to the end. Each step will reveal itself when it is needed. You may not know what's happening, but something deep within you will whisper, this is part of it. Keep going. And if you listen, if you stay loyal to the unseen, you will arrive. It may not feel magical. The bridge of incident is often ordinary: a phone call, an idea, an email, a chance meeting. It won't always feel supernatural until you look back. Then you will see the perfection of its timing, the genius of its alignment, the impossibility of coincidence. And you will say, only the law could have done this. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. Proverbs 3:5. You are not meant to understand every step. You are meant to trust the unfolding. Don't interrupt the process. The only thing that can disrupt the bridge is you. When you doubt, you delay. When you second guess, you short-circuit the current. When you chase, you confess that you do not yet have. But when you rest in the state, when you carry yourself as one who already is, the bridge strengthens beneath your feet. It forms without effort, because it must. The law is mechanical in its loyalty. It cannot betray the state you faithfully inhabit. Clarity comes in hindsight. You won't always see the connection while you're crossing the bridge, but when you look back, when the desire is fulfilled, you will trace every twist, every delay, every detour, and see how they had to happen. What once felt wrong will make perfect sense. What once felt lost will be revealed as grace. And you'll realize the bridge was not a detour. It was the direct route, hidden in disguise. The law never wastes a step. It only asks, will you stay in the end, no matter what the middle looks like? A living example. You assume success, but are met with silence. No response, no results, just stillness. But then a message comes. A meeting opens. A forgotten connection reappears, and it all begins to move, seemingly all at once. But it didn't start then. It started when you shifted within. The bridge just took time to organize what you could not yet see. This is why the wise walk with confidence, even in the silence. They know. The moment they shifted, life began responding. Keep returning to the end. If the bridge feels long, return to the end. If you feel uncertain, return to the end. If the world looks opposite, return to the end. Because the end you dwell in is what the bridge is built around. Stay there. Live there. Walk from it. And let the law do what it was always designed to do. Deliver you, not by force, but by unfolding. The bridge of incident is the proof that the unseen is always becoming seen. It is the quiet thread between your assumption and its fulfillment. Walk it with faith, with peace, with quiet joy. Because the law is not guessing. It is carrying you, one step at a time, toward the world you already accepted. What you see within, you shall see without, and the bridge will get you there. Chapter 7. The resistance of fact and the supremacy of vision. The most significant test of spiritual power is not how deeply you imagine, but how do you respond when facts contradict your assumption. It is easy to dwell on the end when the world cooperates, but what will you do when the world says no? When does the door stay closed? When does the result seem delayed? This is the great resistance, the place where many fall back into old states and call it reality. But facts are not final. They are reflections. And you are not called to bow to facts. You are called to persist in vision. We look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are unseen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the unseen is eternal. 2 Corinthians 4:18. Your vision is not wishful thinking. It is the root of all things yet to bloom. Facts are not law. They are echo. A fact is simply a past assumption made visible. It is the echo of a state you once accepted. But the law of assumption does not ask you to react to what was. It invites you to create from what is within. The world will always trail behind your state. This is not failure. It is the natural delay between seed and harvest. You may assume wealth and still see bills. You may assume healing and still feel symptoms. You may assume love and still face silence. But the wise do not adjust their state based on the outer. They adjust the outer by persisting in the inner. Do not let the mirror lead. Neville said, "Never accept facts as final if they contradict your desire. Persist in your assumption." Imagine looking into a mirror and seeing a frown. Would you reach into the glass to change it? Of course not. You would change your own expression, and the mirror would follow. Life is the same. The world is your mirror. It cannot show what you have not yet assumed. So when the reflection displeases you, do not fight the mirror. Return inward, adjust the image, feel the new state, and watch the mirror obey. Your reaction reveals your state. How you respond to unwanted facts tells you more about your state than any affirmation. When someone rejects you, do you collapse? When a plan falls through, do you panic? When results don't show up, do you abandon the end? These reactions don't make you weak. They make you aware. They reveal the emotional home you've been living in. And once seen, it can be shifted. Resist not evil. Matthew 5:39. Do not wrestle with appearances. Persist in the truth that lives within you, and appearances must change. Vision is always higher than fact. To walk by vision is to live above circumstance, not in denial, but in dominion. You do not ignore what is. You simply refuse to let it define what's next. Vision says, I see something greater. I accept it now, even if the world disagrees, because the world cannot resist one who refuses to come down from their inner mountain. The facts may scream, but vision whispers. And the whisper is what shapes tomorrow. Write the vision and make it plain. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. Habakkuk 2:2-3. It will surely come, but only if you don't come down. Do not worship the delay. The most dangerous form of resistance is not the fact. It is the belief that the fact has power. When you stare at a closed door and call it your fate, you make the delay your deity. But the law is not loyal to delay. It is loyal to your state of consciousness. When you dwell in the end, even in the silence, the bridge continues to form. The delay does not mean the law has failed. It means the law is still unfolding. Your role is not to chase the outcome. Your role is to remain centered in the outcome already accepted. Faith is measured in stillness. Faith is not loud. It does not argue with facts. It does not beg for signs. Faith is stillness in the storm, the quiet knowing that truth is established even when the world says otherwise. Neville taught, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and continue therein. That is faith. The old state may beg for attention. The world may tempt you back to doubt. But you remain where you have planted yourself, in the end, fulfilled. And that stillness becomes the new cause of all things. Emotional mastery equals spiritual authority. Spiritual power is not in how much you know. It's in how little you react to illusion. Emotional mastery is the mark of one who understands the law. They don't flinch at facts. They don't collapse at contrast. They know this is a shadow. It will pass. But what I hold within will remain. You do not need to win the world over. You only need to win back your attention. Let it rest again on the end. Let it return to what is true. Let it feel again the joy, the gratitude, the fulfillment of already having it, because the moment you do, the law begins again. Remain loyal to the unseen. When you assume the state and persist in it, you become unshakable. The facts may dance. The world may resist. But nothing can stay the same around one who refuses to abandon their inner truth. And in time, the facts surrender. The outer bows to the inner. The reflection changes. Not because you fought harder, but because you remained faithful to the vision. That is the supremacy of inner reality. That is the quiet law that governs all creation. So when facts resist, do not react. Return to vision. Feel it real. Remain there. Because the facts are late, but the vision is always on time. What you see within, you shall see without. But only if you don't let the facts steal your focus. Chapter 8. Imagination, redeemed, the true role of faith. Faith is not hoping. Faith is not forcing. Faith is not begging the heavens for permission. Faith is knowing, with such quiet depth that even the silence cannot shake it. True faith does not look up. It looks within. Because the kingdom is not out there. It is inside you. The kingdom of God is within you. Luke 17:21. And faith is what opens the gate. Faith and imagination are one. Imagination without faith is fantasy. But imagination with faith is creation. The moment you dare to imagine a thing as true and hold to it without contradiction, you activate the law. Neville Goddard declared, "Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality." It is not belief in something distant. It is alignment with something already here, though not yet visible. You are not waiting for evidence. You are becoming it. This is why the outer world must follow, because faith is not a reaction. It is cause. The modern misuse of faith. In today's world, faith has been diluted into wishful thinking. Have faith, they say. While bracing for disappointment, they call it surrender, but deep down, expect to be let down. But this is not faith. This is emotional insurance. Real faith carries no plan B. It stands tall in the unseen and declares, "It is done." Not someday, not if conditions improve. Now. And that internal posture becomes the mold through which life is poured. Faith is assumption embodied. When you assume the wish fulfilled and feel it real, you are not trying to believe. You are being the one who already has. This is faith. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. Substance, evidence, not theory, not concept. Faith is a present tense conviction that the unseen is more real than what the senses report. And when you dwell in that conviction, the unseen must become seen. The world has no choice but to echo the substance of your belief. You are always living by faith. But in what? Everyone lives by faith. The question is, in what are you placing it? You may have faith in failure, and it shows up. You may have faith in rejection, and it repeats. You may have faith in nothing ever works for me, and the law obeys. The law does not judge your assumption. It only fulfills it. So if you must place your faith somewhere, place it in the vision that sets you free. Faith is not passive, it is creative. Faith is often misunderstood as waiting with hope, but hope waits. Faith creates. Faith walks, speaks, thinks, and feels as though the end were already here. Because to the one who walks by faith, it is. Joseph Murphy once said, "Faith is the power of your subconscious to act on the mental image you accept as true." Faith, then, is not just belief. It is mental agreement. It is emotional partnership with your assumption. Once that agreement is made, the subconscious, the law, the invisible forces of reality move, not randomly, but precisely. Faith doesn't require you to understand, only to feel. You do not need to know how the answer comes. You only need to feel that it has come. Faith bypasses the mind. It does not ask for a strategy. It simply asks, "Can you feel the end now?" If so, the bridge will form. You do not need to visualize perfectly. You do not need to master techniques. You need only to believe with your entire inner world that it is so. And that belief, held in imagination, watered with emotion, stabilized by repetition, becomes form. Faith is tested in silence. What will you do when nothing moves? When the world is quiet? When all evidence says it's not working? This is when true faith begins. To imagine in comfort is easy. To imagine in contradiction, this is the mark of mastery. Faith does not flinch when facts resist. It rests in vision. It returns to the inner state. It remembers, this has already happened, even if no one else can see it. Blessed are those who have not seen, and yet have believed. John 20:29. This is the path of the awakened Creator, the one who holds the end in consciousness until the world catches up. Faith is the creative substance of all that is. All creation is faith-based. The house, the business, the relationship, the healing. All of it is first imagined, assumed, and accepted before it becomes visible. You may think you are waiting on time, but time is only waiting on your sustained inner conviction. Reality is clay in the hands of faithful imagination. This is not philosophy. This is law. You are already shaping your life, not through effort, but through the quiet power of what you believe to be true right now. Redeem your imagination. Your imagination is holy. It is not entertainment. It is not escape. It is God in motion. And when you redeem it, when you stop using it to relive old wounds and begin using it to feel fulfilled, you return to your divine role. You become the cause again. You rise above reaction. You stop chasing proof. You become the one who leads from within, and all things must follow. So let your imagination be infused with faith. Let every image be backed by feeling. Let every inner scene become a sacred act of creation. Because the law does not respond to empty words. It responds to faith-filled assumption. When you know that it is done, when you live as though it already is, when you see it within and carry its feeling like breath, the law answers. The world bends, and what was once invisible stands before you. Chapter 9. The inner conviction that moves the world. There is a moment, not always loud, not always planned, when something within you shifts. You no longer hope. You no longer try. You simply know. The door hasn't opened yet, but you've already walked through. The phone hasn't rung, but the answer is settled. No one else sees it, but your soul already holds it. This is an inner conviction, and it is the most powerful force in the world, because when you no longer look for confirmation, you become the confirmation. Conviction is not force. It is identity. You don't have to push. You don't have to repeat endlessly. You don't have to scream your affirmation into the void. You only need to believe it to the point of embodiment. Neville Goddard said, "It is not what you want that you attract. You attract what you believe yourself to be." Conviction is not about belief in a result. It is belief in a new identity. You are no longer someone who wants. You are someone who is. And the world bound by law, must reflect that truth. Conviction changes your center of gravity. When you assume a new state and truly accept it, it becomes your emotional home. You no longer visit it in meditation. You no longer pretend in prayer. You live there. You speak from it. You breathe from it. You navigate the world as one for whom the inner vision has already taken form. This is why conviction moves the world, because it anchors you in a different vibration, and that vibration commands new reality. You stop asking because you know. There comes a point when you no longer ask, "When will it happen?" You don't need signs. You don't need reassurance. You don't even look for evidence, because you've already shifted states, and you know from somewhere deeper than mind that the rest will follow. This stillness is not passivity. It is creative certainty. Let not him who wavers think he shall receive anything from the Lord. James 1:7. Wavering splits the signal. Conviction unifies it. And the moment your inner world becomes undivided, the outer must reflect it. The world responds to what you believe you are. Do not look to others for validation. They cannot see what you are not yet fully being. If you carry the energy of not enough, you will continue to receive reflections of that story. But if you walk as one who is already chosen, already worthy, already whole, the world will reorganize itself around that assumption, not out of magic, but because the law cannot contradict your conviction. It must echo what you dwell in. Conviction quietly closes all other doors. When you enter a state with full acceptance, every other door fades. You stop comparing. You stop reacting. You stop second-guessing. The need for how disappears. You no longer chase the outcome, because in your world, it has already happened. And your energy, your tone, your walk confirms it. You are not trying to become. You have become. And this identity has a magnetic field stronger than action or effort. Conviction doesn't argue, it creates. Conviction does not beg. It does not defend. It does not argue with facts. It sees facts and calmly overrides them. It holds the image. It feels the fulfillment. And it returns again and again to the knowing that reality is not final, only reflective. Neville wrote, "Dare to believe in the reality of your assumption and watch the world play its part relative to its fulfillment." You are not convincing the world. You are convinced within yourself. And that conviction is the prayer that never returns void. You cannot fake conviction. The law cannot be tricked. It responds not to the appearance of belief, but to the depth of your inner agreement. If you say one thing, but feel another, the law answers the feeling. This is not punishment. It is precision. So don't pretend. Go within. Find the place where you already know. And if you cannot find it, sit with the vision until it stirs, until the image takes on tone, weight, and breath, until it feels more real than your doubt. That is the moment creation begins. Conviction builds bridges in silence. You may walk days or weeks with no outer confirmation, but the bridge is building. Each time you return to the feeling of the end, each time you act as one who already has, each time you persist without clinging, the invisible architecture strengthens. And then, one day, without warning, the visible cracks open, and the answer arrives in form. But it never started there. It started with your conviction. The creative process is silent, sure, and personal. Conviction is not loud. It doesn't post. It doesn't seek applause. It rests. It trusts. It knows. You may not be able to explain it, but something in you says, "This is done. This is real. This is mine." And because you know, the law responds, not out of reward, but out of design. So when the noise of the world rises, return to the inner conviction. Feel the identity that is already received. Walk as the one who already knows. Speak as the one for whom it has already unfolded. Because when your inner truth is stable, the outer must bow. This is not belief. This is embodiment. This is the quiet conviction that moves the world. And what you see within, you shall see without. Because you no longer wonder. You know. Chapter 10. The promise fulfilled. The promise was never outside you. It was never delayed. It was never denied. It was only waiting for you to believe. The truth is this: you are the fulfillment. You are the one to whom the promise was spoken, and the one who fulfills it by being it. Neville Goddard taught, "The promise is buried within you, like a seed waiting to awaken. And now, as you walk in assumption, as you dwell in the end, as you live from the inner vision, the seed bursts into bloom, not someday, now. The end was always yours to begin." This is the great paradox. You were never moving toward the promise. You were moving back to it, back to the truth you carried before the noise, back to the vision you once called impossible, back to the knowing that all things arise from within. The world told you to wait, to strive, to earn. But the law says, assume, believe, become. And when you do, the end becomes visible, not because it was created, but because it was remembered. The promise is in the pattern. The law of assumption is not a hack. It is the architecture of reality. All things begin unseen. All form arises from the formless. And you, made in the image of the Creator, are designed to do the same. What you see within, you shall see without. Not by chance, by law, not through striving, through assumption, not by earning, by accepting what is already yours. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Luke 12:32. Not lend you, not delay it. Give you, The only requirement is that you accept it and live from that place. What changes is not the world, but you. The greatest shift is not in the external. It is in you. You go from trying to control to simply becoming. From hoping it arrives to feeling it has. From reacting to appearances to creating from conviction. You stop waiting for life to choose you. You start choosing yourself inwardly first. And then the world, like an obedient mirror, reflects it all back. Because once the inner man is changed, the outer must realign. Not out of magic, out of divine inevitability. The fulfilled state is a frequency. You no longer visit the state of the end. You live there. It colors your tone. It shapes your posture. It informs your language. People notice something different, not louder, truer, not forced, centered. You've become the version of yourself that used to be a vision. And because you no longer doubt it, you no longer delay it. It is done unto you as you believe. Matthew 9:29. You believed, and now it is done. No one can take this from you. There will still be storms. There will still be noise. But once you've tasted the end, once you've felt its reality, nothing can take it from you. Not rejection, not delay, not silence. Because the real fulfillment is not the result. It is the knowing. And once that knowing is seated in your being, the world cannot unseat it. This is the freedom Neville spoke of. The liberation from outer control. The awakening to inner cause. Your life becomes the proof. You no longer need to convince others. You no longer need to argue with those asleep, in fact. Your life becomes the proof. The way you speak. The peace you carry. The results that come, unhurried and exact. You become the living evidence of the law. Not by shouting it, but by embodying it. And others will ask, how did you do it? And you will say, I accepted it within, and the world responded. You are the channel, not the chaser. You no longer chase anything, because you understand now. You are the channel, not the beggar. You are not here to pull things in by force. You are here to align and let them come through you. This is not passive. This is power. To assume the state. To feel it real. To walk as though the unseen is already seen. That is creation. That is the promise fulfilled in real time. That is how worlds are made. The seed has bloomed, but it was always there. You may feel new, but you were always this. The vision you held, the prayer you whispered, the end you imagined. It was never outside of you. It was the deeper self calling you home, the higher self remembering. Now, you don't just know the law. You are the law in motion. You don't just read the promise. You live the fulfillment. This is not the end of the journey. It's the return to the truth you carried all along. So go on. Assume boldly. Create freely. Imagine fully. Let the world mirror your inner certainty again and again. And every time doubt whispers, return to this. You are not hoping. You are not waiting. You are already dwelling in the end. And because you see it within, you shall see it without. This is the law. This is the pattern. This is the promise fulfilled. Thank you for listening to Make Reality Easy. If this message spoke to you, feel free to revisit it anytime you need to return to the truth. What you see within, you shall see without. Until next time, stay in the end and let the world follow.